November 9th, 2023 is the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, which took place over 2 days in the country of Germany in 1938. The full story of this event has been hidden for decades. Not only storefronts and synagogues, but homes were looted, burned, people were beaten, raped, and murdered. The following article by Wolf Gruner is from the website conversation.com, published in November 8, 2019. I'll be reading from this article because I believe the full history of this event must be preserved. Wolf Gruner wrote, "Every November, communities around the world hold remembrances on the anniversary of the Nazis' brutal assault on the Jews during Kristallnacht. Also known as the Night of Broken Glass, it is one of the most closely scrutinized events in the history of Nazi Germany. Dozens of books have been published about the hours between November 9th and 10th, 1938, when Adolf Hitler and his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, decided to unleash violence against Jews across Germany and the annexed territory of Austria with the aim of driving them out of the Third Reich. Most accounts tend to emphasize the attacks on synagogues and shops, along with the mass arrests of 30,000 men. A few note the destruction of Jewish schools and cemeteries. Attacks on Jewish homes, however, are barely mentioned. It is an aspect of the story that has rarely been researched and written about, until now. In 2008, when I arrived at the University of Southern California from Germany, I had been researching Nazi persecution of the German Jews for 20 years. I had published more than 6 books on the topic and thought I knew just about everything there was to know about Kristallnacht. The university happened to be the new home of the Shoah Foundation and its Visual History Archive, which today includes over 55,000 survivor testimonies. When I started to watch interviews with German Jewish survivors of the Holocaust, I was surprised to hear many of them talk about the destruction of their homes during Kristallnacht. Details from their recollections sounded eerily similar. When Nazi paramilitary troops broke the doors of their homes, it sounded as though a bomb had gone off. Then the men cut into the feather beds, hacked the furniture into pieces, and smashed everything inside. Yet none of these stories appeared in traditional accounts of Kristallnacht.
At 9 o'clock, my father said, "I told you, nothing is going to happen. I'm going to sleep." He went upstairs. And my mother and I sat in the living room, and I looked at for the last time, at huge grandfather clock, and it struck. And at that moment, it sounded like a bomb fell on the house. There was such a terrific noise, and of course now I know what it was. We had iron shades on the outside of every window. There were 30 SR. Do you know what SR? But not in uniform. They all wore civilian clothes, but we knew them.
How did you know what they were?
Because some of them were from the village, and the rest were strangers. But when we saw the ones from the village, of course, we knew then. They had axes, and again, it was my mother who said afterwards, these axes had brand new handles, so it was prepared, because Dr. Goebbels got on the radio the next day and said, this was totally unprepared. We had nothing to do with it. The people did it. And my mother said, brand new handles for that. Anyhow, they actually hit through those iron shades everywhere. And then they broke down huge wooden front doors, and they came in. And my father came downstairs. He had put on pants over his nightshirt, and somehow I can see ourselves, the 3 of us, standing in the hallway against the wall. I stood on the first step upstairs, then my mother, then my father. and they came by us and started in the kitchen. And everything was demolished, broken with the axes. There was no window left.
I was perplexed by this disconnect. Some years later, I found a document from Schneidermühl, a small district in eastern Germany, that listed the destruction of a dozen synagogues, over 60 shops, and 231 homes. These surprising numbers piqued my interest further. After digging into unpublished and published materials, I unearthed an abundance of evidence in administrative reports, diaries, letters, and post-war testimonies. A fuller picture of the brutal destruction of Jewish homes and apartments soon emerged. For example, a Jewish merchant named Martin Froelich wrote to his daughter that when he arrived home the afternoon of that fateful November day, he noticed his door had been broken down. A tipped-over wardrobe blocked the entrance. Inside, everything had been hacked into pieces with axes: glass, china, clocks, the piano, furniture, chairs, lamps, and paintings. Realizing that his home was now uninhabitable, he broke down, and as he confessed in the letter, started sobbing like a child. The more I discovered, the more astonished I was by the scale and intensity of the attacks. Using addresses provided by either local party officers or city officials, paramilitary SA and SS squads and Hitler Youth, armed with axes and pistols, attacked apartments with Jewish tenants in big cities like Berlin, as well as private Jewish homes in small villages. In Nuremberg, for example, attackers destroyed 236 Jewish flats. In Dusseldorf, over 400 were vandalized. In the cities of Rostock and Mannheim, the attackers demolished virtually all Jewish apartments. Documents point to Goebbels as the one who ordered the destruction of home furnishings. Due to the systematic nature of the attacks, the number of vandalized Jewish homes across Greater Germany must have been in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. Then there are devastating details about the intensity of the destruction that emerged from letters and testimonies from post-war trials. In Euskirchen, a house was burned to the ground. In the village of Kamp, near the Rhineland town of Boppard, attackers broke into the house of the Kaufmann family, destroyed furniture and lamps, ripped out stovepipes, and broke doors and walls. When parts of the ceiling collapsed, the family escaped to a nearby monastery. In the small town of Großauheim, located in the state of Hesse, troops used sledgehammers to destroy everything in 2 Jewish homes, including lamps, radios, clocks, and furniture. Even after the war, shards of glass and china were found impressed in the wooden floor. The documents I found and interviews I listened to revealed how sexual abuse, beatings, and murder were commonplace. Much of it happened during the home intrusions.
And she brought me into the house and we locked the doors. And it was around 11 o'clock. And my grandmother was in the kitchen, cutting up the cake that she had baked and had made some hand cheese. There were a group of men dressed in the the green uniforms. They were not the black uniforms at that time. They knocked down the door with an axe. They threw bricks into the windows, and then they came in. They destroyed everything that they could see. They went into the kitchen. They knocked down the flour and the sugar, the cheese that my grandmother had made, and then made a mess on the kitchen floor. And then one of them, can't figure it out, urinated on top of all of this garbage and then took his hand and spread it all over the kitchen. Another one went after my sister, and that's when my grandmother took things into her own hands. They took all the feather pillows, they took all the linens, they threw them out of the window, and all of the people in the town were downstairs outside collecting all of the things that were thrown out the window and taking them home. The only thing that survived was a sewing machine that had been covered up with some kind of a white cloth. There wasn't a chair left in the house. There wasn't a mattress. The mattresses they threw out the window. There wasn't a bed left in the house. And there wasn't a window that wasn't broken. And this was in November.
In Linz, 2 SA men sexually assaulted a Jewish woman. In Bremen, the SA shot and killed Selma Zuenecki in her own bedroom. In Cologne, as Moritz Spiro tried to stop 2 men from destroying his furniture, one of the intruders beat him and fractured his skull. Spiro died days later in the Jewish hospital. In a letter dated November 20, 1938, a Viennese woman described her family's injuries to a relative. You can't imagine how it looked like at home. Papa with a head injury, bandaged, I with severe attacks in bed, everything ravaged and shattered. When the doctor arrived to patch up Papa, Herta and Rosa, who all bled horribly from their heads, we could not even provide him with a towel. The brutality of the attacks didn't go unnoticed. On November 15th, the U.S. Consul General in Stuttgart, Samuel Honecker, wrote to his ambassador in Berlin. Of all the places in this section of Germany, the Jews in Rastatt, which is situated near Baden-Baden, have apparently been subjected to the most ruthless treatment. Many Jews in this section were cruelly attacked and beaten, and the furnishings of their homes almost totally destroyed. These findings make clear the demolition of Jewish homes was an overlooked aspect of the November 1938 pogrom. Why did it stay in the shadows for so long? In the immediate aftermath of Kristallnacht, most newspaper articles and photographs of the violent event exclusively focused on the destroyed synagogues and stores, selective coverage that probably influenced our understanding. Yet it was the destruction of the home, the last refuge for the German Jewish families who found themselves facing heightened public discrimination in the years leading up to the pogrom, that likely extracted the greatest toll on the Jewish population. The brutal attacks rendered thousands homeless and hundreds beaten, sexually assaulted, or murdered. The brutal assaults also likely played a big role in the spate of Jewish suicides that took place in the days and weeks after Kristallnacht, along with the decision that tens of thousands of Jews made to flee Nazi Germany. While this story speaks to decades of scholarly neglect, it is, at the same time, a testament to the power of survivor accounts, which continue to change the way we understand the Holocaust.
Echad.